Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, and this is a full tutorial for the TTS mod for Arkham Horror, the card game. First of all, what is this mod? This is a fan-created and maintained mod in Tabletop Simulator that is not supported by FFG or anyone else, and is not publicly available. So if you're looking for it, the best I can say is to look around for the different community discords or reddits and ask around there. This mod is in kind of a legal area, so it's really not something that's supposed to be publicly listed, and we'd like to keep it that way. That said, I do think that the mod is important to the game in creating the community in the game that it is today, and especially if you're looking for those Chapter 1 campaigns and player cards that are just not in print anymore, well, here is one place to use it. But please support the game in other ways. There is no mod without the game, and there's no game if people aren't purchasing the product. Okay, in this video, I'm going to go ahead and give you some of the basics for how to use the mod and then some advanced stuff. So first of all, I assume that you've downloaded this zip file. Usually you put the JSON into your saves folder in Tabletop Simulator on your computer, not the saved objects, the saves folder. And when you load it, you see this. There is a tour that you can take. We're not going to do that here, but you can take the tour that gives you some of the basics as well. I will show you all that stuff on my own. So first things first, camera stuff. If you want to move around the table, of course the cursor moves around as usual like this, but if you want to move around, by default, you're going to be using the keys W for moving up this way, S for moving down this way, D for moving to the right, and A for moving to the left. As simple as that, many games work that same way. Now, I will say right up front, this mod is highly customizable. There's lots of scripts and things that are built in. You'll notice a lot of automation here, but for the most part, TTS is a sandbox. It is something where you can do pretty much anything you want with a lot of customization, which is nice over, a official version of a game that doesn't give you much. There's a lot of control you have over this and lots of options for what all the keys do, but by default, and I think you probably shouldn't change this, moving around the screen like this is fine. Now, if you've ever seen me play on my channel, you'll notice that I don't move the camera around too much because I think that's difficult to watch if the camera moves around quite a bit. But it's something you might need to do as you are using the mod yourself for the first few times. Zooming in is with the scroll wheel. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. And if you want to look at slightly different direction, you can use the right mouse button by default to rotate. Here I am holding it down, moving it off this direction, moving it off towards the right to rotate basically to the left. I actually don't like this either. I have turned this off by default because when you are clicking on things, maybe right-clicking on cards and whatnot, you don't want to accidentally move things around. As you can see, you get a little bit of vertigo with too much movement. Now, you can always go back to the default camera state by pressing spacebar, and I will show you more about cameras later. Next thing we'll look at is just basic manipulation of items on the table. So first, there are two types of objects. You have things like tokens that are just objects like this that you can pick up and move around by clicking, holding to grab it into your hand, and then move around with your mouse and let go to drop it on the table. Now, other objects are things like containers. They are different than these, but they're still objects too. This is a bag where you can put things into it. Go ahead and click, raise your hand over it, drop it. It's now in the bag. You can also pull things out by just clicking and dragging. Now, if you are new to this, the manipulation is going to be a little bit difficult. You don't want to hold this and pick it up. You just want to quickly drag something out of the top of the bag. Now, decks of cards are also objects, but they're also containers. So the same thing works if you want to pick up the first card here, the top card. You just quickly drag, click and drag the card. Now, containers are different from objects because we can search in them. If you click here, but right click instead of left click, you get this search possibility here. And when you do that, a whole list of cards shows up. This is Dexter Drake's default deck, by the way. And you can scroll through here and you can pick out an individual thing. If you want to just drag it out of the whole deck, you can say, I'm just going to take the premonition out. You get this little version of it, and voila, now it's here out of the deck. Something important that you'll notice for manipulating these kinds of objects, and actually all of them, is that you might want to flip them. If you hold over when there's this white outline, that means you've actually hovered over that card. You can now press F on your keyboard. And now we have flipped the card, F for flip. If you want to put this back on top, you can just pick it up, hover over the object that's the deck, let go, and now it has become part of this deck. It's still the top card, but it is now on top of the deck. So just be careful with this sort of thing. You get used to it pretty quickly, but some practice with picking things up and dragging them is important. So you can also put things into a regular bag and do the same sort of thing. Search for the objects. They're all in here. Take one out, drop it on the table. Great. We can flip all of these objects too. Nothing really happens special with the horror and the damage tokens, but with the clue token, if you play the physical game, you know that the other side of a clue token is not a clue, it is a doom. And if we want to make sure we actually see these things, you can of course zoom in super close. Or, this is really, really important, I do it all the time, you hover over the particular object and press the Alt button. Now for small objects like this, it doesn't really do much, but we can zoom in with our scroll wheel to make it as big as possible. It's much more important when we do it with a card. Flip this card over, our premonition is here. I hover Alt, again you hover over and then press the Alt key, and now it is giant on the screen and it's much easier to read. This is also important if you're zoomed way out and want to read text on a card. Great. There's another thing you can do with objects that are in a container, and that's you can shuffle them. Now, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for a bag, although sometimes it does. But if you want to shuffle the contents and have it come out in a different order, you can hover over here and press the R key. It's not really obvious that that's happening when you hover over the bag here, but when you do it over a deck, you can see there's a shuffle animation. You can do this as many times as you want. It doesn't really do anything different, just makes you feel better. You shuffle it multiple times. But the order now is different. So the top thing in this bag here is a horror token. If I shuffle this, we'll get something different. Great. Again, just practice bringing things in and out of these containers. Top card here is a broken bottle. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And now it is a different card altogether. Great. That's how you manipulate objects. The other thing that is important for cards, and maybe sometimes other objects, is to rotate them. So if you take a single card here and rotate it, that's going to be with your Q, which is rotates this direction, or E, which is rotating it the other direction. I believe that is clockwise. And you sometimes need to do this in the game. You need to rotate things back and forth. Usually this is to denote if something is exhausted or not. Now, by default, TTS might have a different rotation degrees. I think it might by default be 45 degrees. So I like to click this to make sure it's 90 to represent what the game really cares about. But 45 degrees is now going to be the default just by clicking that button up there. So when I press the button to rotate, you get that sort of behavior. But let's go back to 90 because that's what I like the best. One more thing over here. You can group different cards together or other objects to put them into a new stack, a new container, for example. And how we do that is we are going to click and drag to select everything that's now being highlighted, which would be in yellow. If I press the G button, now they have formed a single object, a container of 2 cards. I can flip this, I can rotate it, do anything I want there. This is also the case with, for example, multiple clues. Now, I only have one here, we can get more later, but we should know how to copy things. We right click here and go copy, and then right click and go paste. Now we have another one. We also could do the clone button. That will do the same thing, but let us do as many as we want. Click wherever we want. Here they are. If I want them all together in one stack, I select them all and hit group. And now we got a stack of 6 clues. I can do all the same stuff I did before. I can flip them. I can rotate them. I can throw them across the table. Now, it is a physics simulator, so in general, you're going to find that the tokens might behave a little strangely because they're just other objects. But in this mod, as you'll see on the player mat, the tokens tend to stick to cards a little bit better. We've made it so that it is hard for tokens to fall off of cards when you move those cards around. Because we can make a stack, of course, of things like, I don't know, you put some Doom maybe on a flashlight here. I can pick this up and they stick onto it quite nicely. As for the other tokens that we saw, like, for example, the damage and horror tokens, if we want these to be a different number instead of just one damage or one horror, you'll note that when I hover over these, we have a red button that appears. That often indicates there's something that happens when I click. If I click, we now have 2 or 3 or 4. And this is something we're going to note a little bit later. If we want to change the numbers directly, we can also type using the numbers above the letters on our keypad. Not the numpad, but the numbers above all the keys, and we can change these numbers directly. So I want this to be 12. Voila, it's 12. I typed 1 and then 2 directly. I have to do it fairly quickly. I can't just do 1 and then 2, but rather 1, 2, 33, 58. Even do something like that. So if we want to reset it, of course, we can right-click to make the number go down, or just type in 1. You also can go down to 0, by the way, and this is sometimes useful if you have something that repeatedly gets damage or horror on it, but then heals off. Okay. Last thing we should talk about with manipulating cards and decks is that sometimes you're going to want to put a card on the bottom of a deck. To do this, we will hold the card here, flip it, and then we're going to hold down. I'm holding down the left mouse button still. That's how I'm holding it in the hand. I'm going to hold down the right mouse button at the same time, so I'm not letting go. And now it is basically being dragged on the table surface. And I'm going to put it underneath this deck by still holding it and moving as close as possible. And whoop, there it is. Now it's on the bottom. In fact, we can flip this whole deck and you can see there is that card. Now, that's a little bit difficult to do. It takes a little bit of practice. And I could just do it again here and show you that it's going on the bottom of the deck. See, there it is. And if I want to take a card from the bottom of the deck, this is a little bit less easy. You need to pick up this whole thing. This is the whole deck. Hold down Alt on your keyboard and then right click. Again, my mouse button, that's the left one, is still being held down. But now I have left Alt and then the right mouse button. Click, lets that last card fall to the ground. I'm still holding, and I can in fact keep doing this to drop all these cards that are from the bottom. Takes a little bit of time to get used to. Again, here I'm selecting everything, hitting group, and now I have all of these cards here as a separate deck. All right, great. But where do all of these cards come from in the first place? Well, if you're up at the top left corner of the table, there is this big thing that's called the player card panel. And there's also this other little thing called the search a card object. And this is how you can get cards in the mod. Now, there's another way to get the deck that you've created directly in the mod, and that is by using the ArkhamDB or Arkham build deck importer. That's a little bit further down here. And this is really the preferred way to get a deck into the mod. You should be doing all your deck building in something like ArkhamDB or Arkham.build, and I'll show you that in a bit. But if you're not doing that and just want to grab cards, this player card panel does the trick as well. Let's take a look at what it does. Right now, I've already selected something that is the Chapter 2 button, but if we want to include content from Chapter 1, from Chapter 2, potentially other cards like fan-created expansions, we can click on this button as well. So if I want to look at all the cards from a particular cycle, then I can click on that particular cycle here. This is something where I can scroll up and down and see some other cycles. There's a lot of cards in this game across its whole lifespan. If we want to look at just, for example, anything from the Evergreen starter decks, then I'll click that button. And now there's a whole lot of cards that have spawned right underneath here. They will all go away if I click anything else up here. So if you want any of these cards, you can click them and drag them over here. And now it's pretty much safe. You probably don't want to do it that way. I would recommend doing the copying and pasting or cloning methods if you're trying to build a whole deck. But You can, of course, do whatever you want. It's just that when you click any other button up here, it'll replace everything you're sitting with, seeing down here with whatever the new selection is. So that was everything in those 5 evergreen decks. Tommy, Carolyn, Andre, Marie, Miguel de la Cruz. They're all here. 1 copy of everything. Now, if you want to look at things just by, for example, class, we can look at, say, every Seeker level 0 card, and this is going to be everything across Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. It's going to take a little while to load everything, and you can see there's a lot of cards, including the multi-class cards, by the way. They're down here as well. Again, pick it up, put it somewhere else, build some deck, whatever you're doing. This will let you look at everything at once if you'd like. Remember, Alt, and then maybe zooming in will let you look at all of these cards. The taboo cards, by the way, these are the ones that are mutated or chained in some way, are separate cards in this system. So this is the original empirical hypothesis, and then with the addition in the taboo list, it now says that the limit on the bottom is twice per round for drawing cards. So those sorts of things are going to be why you see doubles of some cards, like here is Scroll of Secrets. It's a action to exhaust and spend a secret. Here it is just a free triggered ability with the taboo list. All right. If you want to look at, for example, the investigators themselves, you can click on the button up here. So all Seekers ever released. They will come in with their signature cards. I have selected the starter decks as well, and this will give you basically, I wouldn't say a recommended deck, but a playable deck of that investigator. So you can just pick this up and their investigator card as well, and their mini card, move it over to your player mat, something to look at in a bit. If you just want to look at the cards only, we'll select this instead. And then maybe let's look at the rogue ones. Takes less time to load, of course. Here they all are. If you ever want to clear everything, there's a button that says clear. I think something that's really important and really cool is that you might want to show all the weaknesses. Or maybe you want to get a random basic weakness, because sometimes during gameplay, there's a treachery or maybe an act or agenda flip that says that you get a random basic weakness. If you just click this with your left mouse button, you get a random one. It'll load in here. This one is the 13th Vision, and just take it into your deck, and there you go. If you want to get a particular type, sometimes they say you get a random basic madness weakness. Now we can right-click this button and type in what the potential trait is. If it's madness or, oh, I don't know, maybe it could be a curse. That could be a different one. We'll hit OK, and now it'll give us a random basic madness or curse. And we got a madness this time. And if you're doing this for multiple players, because everyone has to get one, just right click again. It keeps what we put in that field already. Hit OK, get another madness. Maybe we're playing 4-player. Just keep going. Maybe we'll get a curse at some point. Are there curses? I think there are curses as weaknesses. Now all the cards are being loaded. That's another madness. I'm just now curious. I'm hoping there is a curse. Otherwise, that was a silly thing to do. Oh yes, there's definitely a curse weakness. Cool. Yeah, cards might take a little time to load in, but once they're on the table, they won't need to load in every single time. So don't worry about that. All right. These are all cards that we don't care about. We didn't talk about deleting things. If you're the host of a game, you can just hover over and press the DEL, delete key on your keyboard, and they're gone forever. Well, if you're not the host, then you can just put things in the trash can. We'll see that in a second too. I wanted to show you the search a card panel here. If you're searching for a particular card, you can just type in the name. So for example, you're looking for Lucky, and you're going to get a lot of things here, unfortunately, because it's not just searching for the card that's called Lucky, but rather it's a string search. So we're getting things like Plucky and 13 other cards. We can search that stack of cards, and you can see that Lucky Penny is in here, Lucky Charm, Lucky Cigarette Case, Lucky Dice, and yeah, Lucky as well. You're also going to get multiple versions of these things potentially. Let's see, the difference between these two is that we have a older scan, I suppose, from the revised core versus the old core. So it's just nice to look through here if you're searching for something particular. If you are getting, for example, a level 2 card, you can search for that in particular if you have the right text here. So we can search for, deduction 2, and that'll get us just deduction 2. Of course, there's 2 copies of that because there's an older print of it as well. No mechanical difference between those and the new one in the Carolyn Fern deck. There's more you can do with the search card. You can put in other kinds of search criteria, like the level of the card or anything with a particular slot. It's pretty similar to the filters in Arkham DB or in Arkham Build. You can read about those there. If you have other cards, like from a fan expansion or campaign, you can put those cards into this box over here, and then the search a card and player card functions will conjure up those cards as well. But really what you should be doing is using the deck importer function. So go ahead and type in the deck ID from Arkham DB or Arkham.build. Probably copy and paste it really, because these fields aren't particularly big, and you're going to put that in here and then click this build all button. There's some other options up here. This should be on private for the most part. There are deck lists that are on Arkham DB that are public, and those are the ones that are published essentially on the front screen of Arkham DB. If you're just taking those whole hog, you can change this, but recommended that you don't. Even in Arkham DB, these should all be private decks. You just need to go into your settings in Arkham DB to make sure your decks are considered to be shareable, essentially. You don't want to have Arkham DB publish all of the decks that you are making privately, but TTS needs to know how to get the deck that you are trying to import, so make sure that those are considered to be public and not published, which is different. Believe this as private. For Arkham.build, there's also a setting at the bottom left that you have to create it as a share so other people can view them as well, and that allows the mod to pick up that particular deck too. So just copy and paste it into here, hit build all, and you're going to get, at least here in the white seat, we're going to get the Dexter Drake core set that I put up on my channel earlier. We'll take a look at it, what just happened. But just as a by the way, if you're playing with all 4 players, you can put them all in here and hit build all. You don't have to do them all at the same time. There is detection on this to make sure that there isn't already a deck in the player mat space. So this won't put anything there if there already is a deck there. Okay, what happened when we click that button? I'm over here at the white player mat section. And what happened was the deck was imported, the player investigator card was placed here, and a mini card was spawned right here. When this investigator card was dropped here for the very first time, what happened up here with this skill tracker is the numbers on the card got put over here. We can change those numbers if we ever have any static boosts in play, like a Bloodstone or something else. But these numbers aren't dynamic. They're not going to count things automatically. It's up to you to click these buttons yourself. It will always start with whatever your base stats are for your investigator, but beyond that, you can make them go up and down depending on what else is in play or any treacheries, that kind of thing. Everyone has different preferences about what they do with this. Some people don't touch it at all, but you can if you'd like to. Now the deck imported here. There's a discard pile right below it. So when I discard a card, I would like to put it here. It's going to be face up because that's generally how things work. When you import a deck from the importer, it's going to take a look to see if there was a random basic weakness in there already. And if there wasn't, it will add one in directly in TTS. You don't need to do that, but it's fine. If you want to be surprised about what your deck is going to have, you can just leave it as the placeholder in the deck building apps and then just let TTS fill it in. Of course, you can still always search it. Okay, so that's your deck. That's going to work as normal as we saw before. If you want to draw cards to your hand, you can either just drag and pick up the card and move it down to this area where your name is. That is where your hand is. If I move around here, you'll see that there's a preview down here of what my hand is, as well as the actual cards are here. This is not actually the card, even though it kind of hovers over, does the same thing. But the cards are actually physically right here. If I want to move them, that'll work. I can do it from here too, but it's a little bit more awkward. In fact, usually I don't have this part uh, up here. I could get rid of it with H, but let me show you what happens when there's more cards in here. If I want to pick up more of them, you'll notice that it automatically flips them when you drag a card into your hand. If you don't want that, I mean, you can still flip the cards here too. But yeah, they're here, they're here. You press H to make that go away if you don't want that to be there, but otherwise they can be there. I'll turn it off for now. That is one way to draw cards. It's not the best way though. The best way is to simply hover over here and press the one number on your keyboard, the keyboard part where all of your letter keys are, not the numpad. One will draw you one card into your deck. If you want to draw more than one card, in Arkham Horror the card game, card draw happens all at once, so it's not when your card says draw 3, it's not draw 1, draw 1, draw 1, but it's rather draw 3. Hover over here and press the 3 number, and you get 3 cards in your hand. Great. That's pretty nifty. If you want to discard things from your hand, you can just drag and put them into the discard pile. You'll note that there's these little ghost versions of the cards above the discard pile right now. That means that this is a snap point. When I hover over here and I'm like kind of far off, but they're still within range of this discard pile, I can let go and it still snaps into that spot, which is kind of important in this game because a lot of things are going to look at cards that are in particular positions. Now for assets, that's going to be true of these positions on the player mat too. So this is a card that goes in the body slot, so it should go there. Doesn't have to, but it can. And voila, it snaps into place there. This is a card, Cosmic Flame, that goes into the arcane slot, so why not put it right down there? Now, you'll notice that once I've dropped it into a slot on the player mat, or over here too, the card has come in with 3 different charges, because this card uses 3 charges. Great. These tokens have now been added automatically. You don't need to do anything. And if you want to spend, you can just pick up the charge and throw it in the trash can. It's gone. You can always pick it back up if you'd like. When you drop it here, it'll just drop on top of the card. Remember earlier I said that they don't tend to fall off. If you drop the card again, it won't spawn any new ones. But if you want it to spawn new ones, it'll need to go back into a deck or into your hand, so to sort of refresh the data on it. So if it goes in the discard pile, I think that works as well. All of the charges will immediately go into the trash can, which is really handy. And if I put it back here again, haha, more charges. Great. So don't worry too much about the tokens. They usually go away if they are out of play. So I'll put it back in my hand, for example. The tokens fall onto the ground here and then immediately go into the trash. Great. Other things you might want to be looking at here on the player mat. We have numbers indicating the amount of damage and horror on your investigator. This is not the health and sanity of your investigator. That is just printed here. So if you take some damage, you're supposed to click up and say you took 3 damage. Well, now we have 3 damage on us. So we're going to count up, don't count down. Same thing with the resources. We have lots of resources. We can click here. If we're going to go down, we right click, make them go down, spend our resources. In fact, you'll notice in the chat log over here, it's telling me things about how many resources I just gained or spent. That's a good way of tracking what you did, because sometimes it's hard to tell digitally because we don't have actual tokens moving around for our resources or damage or horror. For clues, there is just this number here that's going to count how many clues are in the area. So if I have some way of getting clues, and by the way, I will check this stuff out in a second. Maybe I have a clue from something. Now it says I have 1 clue. If I have another clue here, now it says I have 2. If they're in a stack, still 2. So you'll notice that these are containers that contain tokens of the type that we saw before. And the Doom ones are the same as the clue ones. They're just coming out with the Doom side face up. Flip this over. It's actually still just a clue. These are resources. And the one thing that you haven't seen yet is this, which is a dynamic token. This is for adding things to a particular type of use. So Cosmic Flame, once again, has charges. It doesn't have these resources on them, although we can change this to be a different state. If we right click and say, change this to, oh, I don't know, charges, and now it becomes that particular thing. That's a bit burdensome, though. Let's get rid of this, and instead we can pick up the dynamic token and just drop it here, and now this whole thing is respawned nicely, evenly spaced 4 tokens. So if you want to continue to add charges of things, if you have cards that let you do that, you can do that here, and you have a bunch of tokens. Now, if you do this too much, you're going to get a lot of tokens on here, and that's kind of annoying. You can still read the text on the card by alt hovering, and at some point, there's just too many tokens on here, so something special is going to happen. Well, probably one more, and voila, they have turned into a clickable counter. So instead of there being 13 tokens here, all of them are gone, and now it is just a counter for how many charges, which I can left click, right click, as usual with the resource clicker over here as well. Now, if you ever want to get rid of tokens, there's some easy ways to do it. Just the simplest thing to say here is you pick it up, put it in the trash. You can also put it in your threat area, anywhere near these discard buttons, and then they will put them in the trash too. You can just put a bunch of stuff here. It'll all go away. We'll show you some shortcuts on the keyboard a little bit later. Okay, more buttons. There's the discard 1 button down here. This one discards 1 random card from your hand, and it includes any hidden cards. There are some cards that are called hidden, and they're not eligible for random discards, but anything else is eligible, even weaknesses that are not hidden. And if you click this, you're going to get a random discard. So that's handy. Put those away. You'll note that there's an upkeep button here. This, during your upkeep phase, the end of upkeep, this is going to draw you a card and get you a resource. In that order, by the way. This is just a way of quickly doing that, but actually it does something a bit more. Any of these tokens that are up here, such as these action trackers, I use these for saying, hey, I took an action. I took another action. I took a third action. I'm done with my turn. Or this reaction token, as you can see here, Dexter's ability here is a limit once per round. I can use this to track, hey, I've done this already. But when the new round comes around, I can click on upkeep and they all flip back over. The other thing that happens during upkeep is that you have an ability to ready all cards. That's not an ability, it has to happen. And for example, the Cloak of Resonance exhausts when you put horror on it to deal damage. Voila, we have horror. This happens again until we can ready it again. But in upkeep, that happens. Click on upkeep, and it's readied back to the upright position. Now, most of the game interacts with other stuff on this table, such as drawing encounter cards and drawing chaos tokens. I'll go over the counter cards in a second, but first we'll look at the chaos tokens. It's this button here. Click this for a chaos token. Here you go. -2. Click it again. Again, these are all left clicks to send it back. This won't work if there is already another token out somewhere else, so make sure you've returned those tokens. Keep drawing tokens. Drawing tokens is fun. Click again, send it away. Now, if you want more than one token, such as some tokens effect say, draw another token. Well, you draw one, and then it might say, if you draw a skull token, draw another token, and add those modifiers together, something like that. You're going to right click. Instead of left clicking, you're going to right click, and that's going to bring out another token. We can do this as much as we want. We get all the tokens out here. If we want them all to go away, voila, they're gone. Now, in some cases, you might have an ability that says draw 2 tokens instead of 1, or draw 5 tokens instead of 1, something like that, where they all come out at once. To do that, hover over here and press the appropriate number, let's say 2. Now they're both here at once, and then maybe you need to return 1 or cancel 1. You can flip tokens to show that you've canceled them. Doesn't really do anything, but it is cool to show. Encounter cards sort of work the same way. We don't have any encounter cards out here yet, so we're going to talk about this later when we load in a campaign. So let's do just that. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen is going to be where all of our campaigns are. There's a couple of placeholder boxes for some of the most recent campaigns. The Chapter 1, Original Core, as well as the Drowned City that's here. Chapter 2, so far we have just the core, Brethren of Ash. And there's a few other things down here, like the Film Fatale standalone, as well as a standalone by a fan. Now, there are more campaigns, of course. So it says right here, for more content, we're going to click this button down here, and we can see all kinds of stuff, all the official campaigns. Dunwich Legacy, Circle Undone, Feast of Hemlock Vale, and then we'll click download over here to actually bring this into the mod. There's other stuff here as well. Language packs we'll cover later, but other official side scenarios and all the fan stuff is here as well. We'll close that. But that's down here. Now we can just download the core set directly here, and now it's loaded it in. This is a container. It contains stuff, but we don't need to just drag things out from here. We can hit the place button, and what happens is 6 objects have been placed. Well, not around here. They are now in the main play area. There's a couple things to look at. There are 3 scenarios. There is a campaign guide, and over here, a campaign log for you to type in all the stuff relating to the investigators, trauma, any notes, etc. Okay. Let's go ahead and start with the first scenario, Spreading Flames. We'll hit the place button. There is a recall button over here to the left. They've got the nice title showing up here. This recall button is always going to, it also has shown us that we only have one investigator. So the investigator number here, the number playing, it says 2. Should we update it to be just 1? We'll talk about why in a second, but okay. All right, back to this part. If we want to bring everything back into this box, we can hit recall because we accidentally put the wrong scenario out or something like that. But this isn't the typical way to clean up the board. We'll show you that a little bit later. Okay, so when I place this, we have a couple of new things out here. We have a set-aside chest. This is where anything entering setup is put aside. It goes in that box. We have a single location that we start the game at, and then some things over here. This is called the Mythos area. Let's check out what is here. We have an encounter discard pile that's empty. There's a button to reshuffle everything back in. There is the encounter deck itself. You might have noticed that when the scenario loaded, the encounter deck automatically shuffles. This is true for every scenario. So you don't need to remember to do this, although you might shuffle it anyway. There's an agenda deck, there's an act deck, and a scenario card. And the scenario card can be copied to the player mats into a spot that is right near where the chaos token button is. We can do that. And then over here, the select difficulty. This one is to make sure the chaos bag has the right number of tokens and the right tokens in them according to our difficulty level. So if we were playing on expert, we're now going to be able to look at the bag. You'll see a -8 and a -6 in here. Kind of nasty. We'll go over to standard. And now the tokens here are quite different. Okay. Now, if you want to put Doom into play, for example, you just click this big button here. This says that there is 1 Doom now on this card, and as you saw pop up on the screen, it does say that there's 1 out of 3 because that's how many Doom can be in play before the agenda advances. This has a 3 threshold. Once you get to 3, it's going to turn red to say, wait a minute, we need to advance now. To advance, we can press this button, and it flips the top card, removes all the Doom from play, and then you can read this card. And just rinse and repeat for the next one. This little button here is going to count any other Doom that's in play that's not on the agenda. That, of course, all counts towards the agenda advancing too, and it'll count it. If we put some Doom into play, like here's a clue, but it's actually a Doom, and now you can see that it counts it as part of the number of Doom in play. Throw that away in the trash, and it'll go away. So this automatically detects whatever's on the table. This reset button also gets rid of all the Doom in play. If we go ahead and click on it, it'll all go. This settings button here is going to tell us that we could not remove all the Doom in play, maybe just the ones on the agenda, or maybe the stuff that's in the player area or on player mats. This depends on the scenario. By default, just leave it like this, but sometimes scenarios say when the agenda advances, move all Doom onto the next agenda or leave all the Doom on locations, that sort of thing. You might want to mess with these checkboxes. Now, same thing for the clues. Here, we need to get 2 clues for displaying solo to advance, and this is part of why we should have the correct number here. And if we have that, we can press this button advance, and it will remove all the clues, and also it will tell us to advance this act. So if I press the button here, as you can see, we don't have enough clues. Let me show you what happens when you do. Okay, I quickly changed this to be 2 players, and we need to spend 4. Let's say I had 3 clues and my friend had 2. So we can press this advance button, and now it says who wants to spend all the clues. We can say that maybe I spend 3 and the orange player mat spends 1, and then they'll all get spent, and we've now moved to the next side here. We'll read this and then move on to the next act. Other things that are up here, there's another trash can. There's a way to get some physical connection markers, not necessary. There's also a way to check how many different tokens everyone drew. If someone drew a ton of auto fails or something, this is a button that lets you see that. Okay, the main play area here. So if we have just one investigator again, and we have this location on its unrevealed side, there's no clues. But if we flip it, it's going to spawn the appropriate number of clues. 2. There they are. And if we get them and advance, then we can move on, of course. Let's see what happens when we have more locations out. Let's get the dormitories and this Miskatonic quad out here. You'll note now that there are some gray lines to connect the locations. That shows you the connections that are on the bottom of the card. The nice thing is we can move these cards wherever we want, and that is still always going to be the case. Don't do something silly like this, because now the lines overlap. Try to spread them out until you know exactly where everything connects. If there's ever something that says, actually, you need to connect 2 other locations and that's not automatically in here, you can actually select both locations. And here I've hovered over them and held down the control key to get them both to be highlighted in yellow. You could also just, now they're both selected, and you could also just say move this one here and select them both by doing the drag. And then hold down the number key on the numpad, 0, and now they're both connected as well. Hooray. Now that's not actually supposed to be happening in this scenario, so I will get rid of that, but it is a cool thing. Now that we have an encounter deck, let's go back to the player mat. If we want to draw an encounter card, it's just click this button here, and we have an encounter card. It's the top card it will always draw, and put it in this leftmost area. Then what I like to do is put it in one of these threat area slots. You can just pick it up and put it here, or you can hover over this button here and hit the right click button, and it goes to the rightmost empty slot. Then if I draw another encounter card for some reason, like the Hellhound is still around, well, here's another Hellhound. That's pretty funny. Draw another one. Here's a bystander. All right. All of these cards, of course, can be in the main play area. You can move them around. Whatever you need to do, they can be exhausted and rotated as usual and be placed at locations. If you ever need to ready the cards that are all here, and there's a bunch of them, you can press this Ready Cards in Play Area button, and they all ready at once. Last thing that we should talk about before moving on to anything more advanced is how to clean up the board. You have a few options here. One thing you can do, of course, is just select everything and throw it in the trash bin or delete it. If you want to do things a bit more automatically, because the only thing that really you shouldn't get rid of is the chaos bag itself, there's a button over here called the cleanup helper. What this does, if I hit reset play areas, it's going to get rid of everything that is on the play area. That's this main play mat here. Everything that's on the Mythos area except for the chaos bag. And it will get rid of everything that is on your player mats. There's a setting to not touch with the player mats. We click on settings up here. You'll see that there are some different things here. The biggest one, I think, is the tidy player mats setting. If we unclick this, then your player mats will be unchanged, but it's okay to tidy them because we can just re-import our decks with all the upgrades from Arkham DB or Arkham Build every single time we play. That's very, very easy. But if we just leave this off here for a second, you're going to see what happens is that everything here will go into the trash. It doesn't actually delete, so you can grab things if you need to. And it's nice to have all that go away so quickly. And then we play our next scenario, we press place, and it is worth saying that some scenarios have a setup helper, like this one, that help you deal with a much more complicated setup. So I'll just show you this one for Smoke and Mirrors. This is a button here that says Smoke and Mirrors Helper. It's going to ask you some questions when this goes through. Like, did you save Miskatonic University? If so, you get a different location out here. Now, I don't think this is a replacement for reading through the campaign guide, so please don't think of it that way. Please do read through all of the setup instructions and make sure that you're not missing anything, because sometimes there are things that are missed. In this case, this also added some chaos tokens to the bag automatically, and you can look at the chat for all of that information about what just happened. So it says here down in the corner, added 2 cultist tokens to the bag, added some agenda, due on the agenda for the player count, as well as the choice we made in the last scenario. It also shuffled all together the people of Arkham with the Servant of Flame, and now they're at these locations face down. So a lot of scenarios have some kind of helper, not all of them, but a lot of them do. But please do read through all of this to understand what just happened. Okay, if we want to clean up this one, of course, we can press this reset play areas button again, and it's now all gone. Last thing before we finish up the main part of the tutorial, it's what you do when you're done playing for the day. You should just save the game. The whole mod itself is a save game. Go up to Games, Save and Load, click here, then Save Game, and type in something. And then you'll be able to save it and load it at any point in the future. Don't save over the mod that you already have, although of course you can just go download it again, but make a new save file, load it, and everything will be in the same place you left it. I think that's about it for all of the basics for the mod. If you'd like to continue on, we're going to talk about more advanced things, the settings, the player mat settings, hotkeys, any helpers on cards, all the fun stuff that makes playing on this mod even more fun and even easier. It's worth saying that I'm not going to go over absolutely everything. We would be here for hours, but it'll be more things that will enhance your experience. There's lots of other stuff on the table. Feel free to explore and see what it all does. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about for the advanced stuff are the hotkeys. I think this is the biggest quality of life addition once you've got all the basics down. So let's do the easy ones. These are the token spawning hotkeys. I'm just going to copy this little reference card over towards our mat so we can take a look at what they all do. It's pretty self-explanatory. Your numpad looks like this. Pressing those numbers, again, it's only the numpad, not the buttons that are above your letter keys. You're going to get those tokens. So for example, you get a doom, you get a clue, you get a resource token, you get a damage, you get a horror. This is the old connection tokens. We don't really use those anymore. The ones on the bottom, 3 is going to give you a countable resource, clickable countable resource token. Those are very nice. This is going to give you an action token. As you can see, it automatically detected I'm Dexter and I'm a Mystic, so I can just add another ability token down here. I can show you how to change that in a second. And then this one is the same thing, but the blue ring means it's temporary, meaning if I only get this round, when I hit upkeep, it goes away. All right, I mentioned it. Let's talk about what this also could be. We can right-click these. In fact, you can right-click a lot of things. You can change the color. You can change the symbol that's on it. We can make this, say, a move symbol. Maybe my extra action is only to move, like you're playing the Boon of Hermes in solo to get an extra move every round. You can mess around with this. There's lots of different things you could have as the symbol. In fact, if you do change this to a reaction, it will make it a smaller symbol as well to match the ones that are down here. Okay, and that will live with you forever until you trash it, of course. Okay, I've already showed you 0. That was to draw connections between locations that don't already have them. This is very nice for scenarios like Devil Reef in Innsmouth Conspiracy, where there are locations that come out and get weird connections, but it's not something we could have pre-programmed at all. It's worth saying that some of these tokens also behave a bit differently when we spawn them on top of a card. So here's Cosmic Flame again. Zoom in a bit. Add a resource. When we did it over here, just literally added a resource token. But when we add it to and hover over a particular card like this one, it's going to add the charge. This is basically identical to using one of these dynamic tokens. Instead of dragging over here, you can just press numpad 9 and you add all of the tokens. In fact, when we get to 13, once again, they turn into the clickable type. Of course, if there's nothing on here and we just want the clickable type, we can hit 3. There actually are some other settings that we will look at later to modify that behavior. If you only want the clickable counters, they can come in by default. This is true for the Doom as well. If we put a Doom token here, on these cards, nothing's going to happen because there's already uses associated with this card. But if we get, like, for example, an enemy, like this Zealot, who already comes in with the Doom, by the way, but if we end up adding more Doom, we hold numpad 7, it's going to nicely arrange them instead of just dropping them at random here. Now we can also remove all these tokens by, as usual, just dropping this in the discard pile. They'll go away, but there's another way to remove the Doom, which is a different set of hotkeys entirely. These are going to be found in the options menu up here. They're at the very bottom, called game keys. These are very powerful. There's a lot of them here, and not everyone has set them all. That is fine, but these are scripted for particular game actions, like adding Doom to the agenda. If you don't want to move over there and click the button, you can just press something on your keyboard. I believe all of these are set by default to be nothing, but you probably should pick a few keys that are otherwise unused for TTS and add a couple of these things that you find to be useful. The most useful are going to be the aforementioned remove a use that I have set to Y. And what this does is removes a token from here. It could be the Doom if there's nothing else on here. If there are charges like there are right now, pressing Y removes them one at a time. Really, really nice. Other ones that are perhaps very useful for you are going to be take clue from location. Now, by default, this is going to take a clue to whatever seat you're sitting in. There's ways to change this. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but this makes it so that if there's clues on a particular location, like, this one has one clue. If I want to bring this directly to my player mat without having to, awkwardly pick this up and move it over, I'm just going to hover over the location and press C, and that's the one I set it to. It's going to move it directly to my player area. It says over here that I took a clue from the sewer tunnels. I can do that from the bag over here too, the infinite clue token bag. I can just get them directly. The other one that I think is really important, let's go back over to our game keys menu, is the discard a object. When I have this set to T, again, you can choose whatever works for you. And that means that anything that's over anywhere is going to go into the appropriate discard pile. So this Zealot, just zoom out here so you can see, going to go into the discard pile up there. That's the encounter discard pile. What about this Cosmic Flame? It's mine, so it shouldn't go over there, but I've hold over here and press the same button. It goes into my discard pile. Only thing you should be careful with here is if you are committing a card to someone else, and generally if I'm telling someone, hey, I'm committing male dexterity over to you, and I press T here, it will go to my discard pile, but if you get it into, say, their threat area, then it's going to go to theirs. So just be careful about where you place it. It doesn't really know what card is yours and what card isn't, but you'll figure it out. I really like this button because you can do it from anywhere. Again, if it's your own player card, it'll go into your discard pile and get rid of all the tokens. There are more game keys, so you might want to look through here and see what makes sense to you. I happen to also like the move card to victory display button because sometimes this victory display is going to move around. Let's find our victory point, Dark Magician. If you end up killing this thing and want to send him to the nearest empty slot of victory display, boop, there he goes. Okay, next thing are the settings. And oh boy, there's a lot of settings. It's this gear icon down here, the options. Well, the very first thing up here is the change the UI language, the interface. Most of these languages here have a full translation of all of the stuff that's in XML, all of these pop-ups and whatnot. It doesn't change the cards themselves. We'll show you how to do that in a bit. If I want to change this to Spanish, you can see that now everything here is in Spanish, including the tooltips. Let's go back to English to talk about what these things actually do first, but this is very nice for playing in a different language. First one, set difficulty to hard or expert. This is going to flip the snare reference card. The other side here is the hard expert version. It'll do this by default. One other thing I really like here is enlarge chaos tokens. This is how I get a big chaos token on the middle of the screen, which is nice in case you're not looking at everyone's player mat. I click here and it shows you, hey, I just drew a +1. Sometimes if you're zoomed way out, that +1 doesn't actually look like a +1. You're not totally sure if it was a -1 or +1. Well, turn that sucker on. Card helpers, will show you them later, but they probably should be by default enabled. This show 1 on damage or horror tokens is for this, right? If you wanted to show that that's actually a 1, not a 0, you can have that on. Remember, it looked like that otherwise. I didn't show you this before, but it's probably also worth saying that if you ever want to make a card bigger or smaller, you can hover over this and press the plus or minus buttons on your keyboard, or use this scale button to make the token big. Not really necessary, but it is kind of a cool thing you can do. The rest of this stuff is probably not all that important. You can highlight the mini cards so that the outline of it matches which player. So white player, orange player, green, and red. Those colors can change if we change the player colors, which we'll show you to do in a second too. The draw one button, some people like an actual just button to draw one card instead of hovering and pressing 1. The textures, those are class specific. You can see the neutral one is here, but if you don't like the special mats, you can turn that off. Clickable counters, this is for the clues. So here, you can actually change this to, instead of physically putting the tokens here, you can make this a counter and click how many clues you have. Some people like that, some people don't. The custom resource images, that is for, say, the Cosmic Flame. If you want to play with the kind of style of, well, the physical game, you can turn that off. Got to put this back in our hand first. And now this comes in with just resource tokens instead. Or you can use clickable resource tokens instead of those. Let's try that. And now it's going to come in with this that you can just click up and down. Now, the table layouts are also a cool thing. If you want to play with a different table layout, let's check out what those look like. You can choose various things here. This is the classic 4-player. If you're not playing with all 4 player mats, you're like just 2 players, you can get rid of them by clicking this button, and now you have more room to put other stuff down. If you are just playing, for example, with 3 players, and maybe you want to put the player mats on the sides, or sorry, rather have one of them over here, but have it not be rotated facing the other direction, you can do that. I also like the true solo layout here, where it moves the Mythos area down here. And I'm also playing a lot on this rotated version, where now the Mythos area is on the left and it's rotated, but now you don't have to look at the stuff that is above. It gives you a nice view, in my opinion, of everything here. You can also customize this if you know a little bit of code and can kind of figure out how all of the positions work out. I'm not going to go over how to do that here, but it is something you can do. Next are some various accessories. I'll show you what those all are. There's an attachment helper. This is for cards that care about how many face down cards are beneath something. Let's show you a card where that actually matters. All right, we have Backpack. This is a classic. After it enters play, you're going to search the top 12 cards of your deck for up to 3 non-weakness item or supply cards and attach them face down. So what you can do with these is you can pick this thing up, stick it on top, and now it has the color of that and image of that particular card. And we can search the top 12. Let's get rid of this so we can see here the top 12. Looking for items or supplies? Well, we have a Cloak of Resonance. I can pick this up, drop it right on top. A supply like Emergency Cash, pick it up, drop it on top, and then maybe the hand crank flashlight, which didn't go in. Let's try again. There we go. And now you can see that they are all here. If I want to pick them up, I can click on the button, and now it draws the actual card. If I want to get rid of this thing, well, I can also draw all three by hovering over, pressing the 3. And if I get rid of the backpack, this will still be here, but I can just trash this. There's always more. These are infinite bags. You can always pull out more of these and use them for other cards as well. Now, we should talk about one other thing with backpack itself. It asks us to search. There's another way to do some searching. Let's go back to our options. We will just jump down here to the search assistant. This is a little helper that if I click on the button, it will spawn an extra little hand of searching through all those cards. It's a little faster than doing the right-click search, and up to you, might be better. Now, it's 3, 6, 9, or 12, but if I want a different number, I can hover over it and press that number on my keyboard. Again, the number is above the keys. But we want 12, we press 12, and voila, here they all are. We can then put them somewhere else to then put into our backpack, and the rest of them get shuffled in. Some cards will ask you to keep the same order. This will just shuffle them all back into the deck. More stuff. The hand helper, I think, is also very useful. This is going to tell you how many cards are in your hand. You might say, I know there's 3. I can count. I'm good at that. Well, what if you have, I don't know, maybe this many? Can you tell just by looking? Well, maybe not, but you are over hand size. That's 9 cards. This number will turn to a red if you are exceeding the number in the upper right-hand corner. If your hand size increases, then you can either manually change it, or probably the mod has already detected that you have a card that increases the hand size, such as this laboratory assistant that Dexter shouldn't actually have, but it does increase your hand size by 2. And as you can see up here, it is now 10. Now the 9 is yellow because you are 1 away from your max hand size. In upkeep, you're going to reach it. So you're safe to draw 1 more card. It's going to turn orange if you are exactly at your hand size. Something like Dream Enhancing Serum will change this. Other modifiers you can change too. Most of this is automated, but not necessarily. You can actually set the number or give yourself a modifier like -2 or +2. There are tarot cards that make this happen. Lots of customizability here. Another important one is, you know what? This player mat's big, it has lots of different slots for stuff, but what if it's not big enough? How about this player mat extension? This is a new thing here that you pull out, put wherever you want, and it usually will automatically link it to the correct player mat. But now you can put things on here as well, and if they exhaust and you go to upkeep, they will ready as normal. If you want to put a Cosmic Flame, which is here, right? Over here, it will spawn the appropriate uses too. This is probably a good time to now talk about the player mat settings themselves. Move that out of the way. There's a little gear icon here. That's more options. If we want to put some other icons into these slots, we can enable slot edit mode. And now we can click on one of these slots, any of them actually, and change it to be whatever we want. Maybe we want to have, I don't know, 2 right hands. Maybe we want to add over here another tarot slot. Or maybe here we want to have maybe another ally slot. We have charisma. So all of that can be customized to your heart's content. Make sure when you're done, you click that button. So now normal things can happen when you click on those spaces on the player mat. Select your hand color. By default, this one is white, but we can be, oh, I don't know, teal. And now you can see my hand color has changed as well. Zoom back in because the camera does change when that sort of thing happens. We can change the texture manually. Even if I'm Dexter, maybe I really want the rogue background. Now we have the rogue background. There's a couple of things here for two-handed solo. So if we're playing another investigator over here, let me load one in. Okay, you've noticed I put Miguel de la Cruz over here. If we draw cards from his deck, you'll note that I can't see them. I want to control both investigators, so how do I do this? Well, first of all, you do it by clicking this button here and changing this to be show or hide this hand to me. And the me here is whoever is clicking this button. Voila, here are those cards. If you want to draw these cards, you still, as normal, can press the button that is the number of cards you want to draw. Draw 3, hover over, perfect. If you want to discard cards, you can use the same hotkeys or do what I'm doing right here, but they should go to the appropriate pile. Very simple. Now, the rest of this stuff on the bottom is going to be things that override kind of the normal settings that we have. So if you as a player really hate the custom resource images, but your friends really like them, you can make this so that only you use the custom resource images or whatever it might be. So global means match the settings that are in this. Enable or disable is just as you would on this particular player map. Same thing with enlarging the chaos tokens. If everyone else hates that giant chaos token showing up in the middle of the screen, but you really like it, you can make sure that it's enabled, or there's some other settings here about which ones you're seeing. Something for you to play around with. Okay, a lot of cards are going to have something called a helper on them. For example, the red clock. This is a card that Dexter can't take, but whatever. This has a couple of buttons on here that say take or place. Well, what does this card do? After your turn begins, you may take all charges here as resources. So take the charges, and they're going to show up in your resource pool as resources. Place a charge here. If it has exactly 1 charge, you get +4 skill value. 2 charges, you may move up to 3 times, and it's kind of covered up, but 3 charges, you may take 2 additional actions this turn. So to help with all of that, you can place a charge. And there's a charge now. If you take it, I've taken it, and we have 1 more resource than we had before. Then it automatically placed another one because this card's ability says you may take, but then also place. All right, let's keep placing some more. Once we get to the 3rd charge on here, we're going to get 2 more action tokens. That's to allow us to do those 2 additional actions. You can do those. Remember, these are temporary because they have the blue outline, and they will go away next round. If I take again, now I have 3 more resources and an extra charge. A lot of cards are going to have something like this. Not everything, but if you can think of something that might require a little bit of help and it's not there, of course, let us know. We'll try to add it. Another important thing is sealing tokens on cards. While helpers like the red clock are not necessary, and a lot of other things are not necessary for navigating and using the mod, to me, the sealing tokens feature is entirely necessary. What is sealing? Sealing means that you place a token from the chaos bag on the card, and then it just stays there. This is a chapter 1 card that deals with bless tokens, which we hadn't seen before, but there's 2 ways to add and remove bless and curse tokens. You can click on the buttons here, add or remove bless. This just adds them directly into the bag. Or there's a manager over here that you can place anywhere on your screen and stays there no matter what you're looking at. It'll do the same thing. Add some bless tokens in. Now this card here says I have to play it, seal up to 3 bless tokens. How do I do this? Right click. Many things that don't have direct buttons on helpers have some kind of right click context menu to do something. And we can seal 1, 2, 3 bless tokens. Cool. Now, Favor of the Sun itself says that when I would reveal a chaos token from the chaos bag, I can exhaust this to resolve a token sealed here instead, as if it were just revealed in the chaos bag. How do I do that? Well, I right click here and use this resolve bless button. And look, the card actually did the whole exhaust thing too by itself. And now I right click to continue drawing, since the bless token rules are to then draw another token. Look at that, the elder sign. And well, I can click here to remove it or to send them back into the bag. Now that's actually not the rules for bless tokens. Bless tokens by default should be removed from the bag after the test. We don't do that automatically because lots of things can mess with those rules. So you'll need to remove the chaos token from the bag by right clicking on this button or over here as well. What do the numbers mean here? The left number means the number of tokens that are in the bag. The right number is the number that are sealed on cards in play. Same thing for the curses. Can add some curses here, but I have no way to seal curses at the moment, but if I did, you'd see some other numbers pop up on the right of the plus sign. There's an awful lot of this stuff in the mod, so just go exploring. I'm sure you'll figure out how it works with enough practice. Last thing I do want to show you for the mod itself is the language packs. Okay, what if I want to play this game in Spanish more than just the UI? Let's go over the downloadable content. Language packs. What this is going to do is replace all the cards that are in the mod with the translated versions of the cards that we have translations for. Let's try the player cards first. It can take a little while to download them. It's a lot of cards. Here they are. What happened is they spawned them in this additional cards back. I don't want to actually open them here because it's a lot of cards, but if I do try to open up, for example, all of the new core cards, you're going to see that all of these have now translations. This is just going to be true from the player cards. Now let's try the same thing with the campaign. Or download all the campaigns. These are not always entirely complete. Now they go into this encounter cards box over here. Let's see what happens when we try to spawn Brethren of Ash. Here's Spreading Flames. As you can see here, Habitación de tu amigo instead of your friend's room. Should be true of everything in the deck as well. Perfect. I suppose I didn't talk about the Token Arranger or the Chaos Bag Manager yet. This is pretty simple. What this is just tells you what the tokens are in the bag and arranges them basically in their numerical order, their modifier order. You can change what those modifiers are by clicking around here. By default, it tells you what the scenario reference card does, but sometimes those change throughout the scenario, like maybe the skull changes by the agenda number or the act number. Those are down here. If you want to add or remove various tokens, you can just click on this. Left click is going to add, right click is going to remove. If you don't want any auto fail in your bag, you can remove it. You can add 3 more elder signs. It does give you a little bit of a don't do this. If you had a physical collection, you couldn't. All right, I think that about does it for features in the mod itself. There's always a lot more to explore and to learn. I'm going to show you a couple of things that are more about TTS. So, cameras. One thing that is built into the mod is this navigation overlay, which lets you click to immediately just go around to different parts of the table. Of course, if you've moved things around, this doesn't quite work. So this only works so well, but it's not bad. This is going to go over to where the player cards are, player panel, etc. But if you want to set your own camera, let's get rid of this. You can do so by using the keys Shift or Control and then the numbers above your keypad. So Shift is going to go to those cameras and Control is going to save them. So if I like, for example, this as my default look, I'm going to go Control, let's say 2. And now if I move around, I can now go to Shift 2. It'll bring me right back there. Spacebar will always give you to camera 0, which is just the default one. You can override that if you'd like. If you ever want to rotate things around and you want a strange look here, and that's really annoying, let's go back to the original camera. There we go. What I often do when I play on my channel is I have a little zoomed in version of what's going on over here. And this does require me to rotate the camera over a bit, find a good angle, maybe something like this. And then what I really like is to do picture in picture. Right click anywhere on the board and we can go to picture in picture. And you can adjust the size of this, but when you click on this lock to player view and you move around, that's just going to stay just that view all the time, no matter what other camera you have gone to. So back here, now I can see everything up there and, still look at what that card is see how much Doom is in play. Of course, it is visible here too, so you can decide kind of what makes the most sense for you and your play style. You also might have noticed that I'm playing in dark mode. If you want to play in light mode, or you want to figure out how to change yourself into dark mode, this is going to be over to interface and to theme. And I'm in dark. You could go to light, dark. And if you don't like all of this junk here, all these menu items, your name, you don't need it, you can get rid of those things sort of one at a time, or you can go to Control plus F6. They all go. They all go. If you want to get just the chat up, you can do Control F5. And chat is really nice because it does give you timestamps if you added them to the settings, which I guess we need to go show you how to do that. I believe it's under configuration. Misc settings. There's a lot of stuff here. I also like to get rid of the autosave because that slows down the game quite a bit. Yeah, timestamp. Just kidding. They're actually down here. Click on the chat settings, timestamps on. Great. What I like that best for is when you've added Doom and you're like, hey, did we add Doom yet? You can look at the timestamp and say, oh, yeah, we just did it 2 seconds ago. Okay, I think that sums it up for this tutorial video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Hope you're ready to play. There's a lot more to explore, a lot of features I did not talk about here. I should mention that there are some normal TTS bugs. If you ever run into, if you are joining someone else's game and there's large buttons or numbers look weird, just means that the host needs to reload the game in some fashion. If you ever have cards that just aren't loading in, you see a big white screen, usually there's some kind of a cache issue in TTS, and there's some ways to fix this. It's better left for you asking around online for particular questions, but the caching or mod threading are something you can turn on and off in TTS to potentially fix those issues. As are over to, I guess it's configuration, to game, try turning on caching or threading, reload these things. You want the cache to be on in general so it doesn't take forever to load every card, but you can try to do that to fix up some of those visual issues. All right, thanks for watching. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. Not about where to find the mod, but about any things, features in the mod itself. I'll see you around.